Yo, what's up guys? Universal Mastery. So what I do on my channel is I break down the occult sciences to an extremely practical level so that you can use them in your day-to-day life and get real actual results. So what I'm going to be talking about in today's video is going off on the different types of archetypes. So this is going to be the second video if you're following them in order. The first one was the Joker. Now we're going to move on to the Magician. Okay, so if you want to learn a little bit more about the archetype of the Magician, then stay tuned. Okay, so the first thing that I want to say is definitely make sure you go and check out the Patreon. On my Patreon, I have exclusive videos. Half of them are going to be geared towards actually getting your hands and feet wet, real practices that are going to help you get more in tune with you could say the energies around you. For example, like chakra empowerments. I have step-by-step breakdown videos of how to perform certain types of rituals. I show you, what certain ends are, like what certain chants are, mantras you could say. And then I have a step-by-step breakdown video of how to do an actual spiritual communion, which is going to be an invocation. I show you exactly how to do that. So half of the videos are going to be geared towards those practices, and then the other half are going to be geared towards educational entertainment, is what I like to call it. So it's going to be very similar to a video like this, where I'm sitting in front of the camera, I'm talking about stuff that is entertaining, but it's also very powerful. There's also a lot of golden nuggets within this entertaining video, so you're going to get some education out of it as well. And also what I'm doing is I'm now on a streaming schedule, so I'm going to be streaming 3 times a week to the best of my ability, 3 times a week. And what I'm going to do after I do my live streams on YouTube, the live streams are going to be on YouTube. It's going to be every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm going to do an hour-long live stream. And then after I live stream on YouTube, it's going to be like you can engage with me there. You can ask me questions. I'm just starting the live stream, so there's probably not going to be that many people at first, but it's going to build once people recognize that I have a schedule for it. So what's going to happen is once the live stream's over, I'm not going to leave it on YouTube. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that video and I'm going to put it on my Patreon. So my Patreon members, as long as you're a tier 2 or up, you're going to have access to those videos. So yeah, so that's what it is. Where you can find the Patreon is if you go to the description of this YouTube video, you go down and see the very first link there. It says My Patreon, and the link is right there. That is where you can find my Patreon. And once again, in order to gain access to these exclusive videos, you have to at least be a tier 2. So in order to be a tier 2, it literally costs $9.95 a month, and that's a reoccurring payment. But if you actually do the math and you look into it, that's literally less than $1 a day. So with that price, for the value that's being offered on my Patreon, there's really no reason why you shouldn't be able to afford that. And as you go up in tiers, the benefits get better and better and better. So definitely, I'm going to let you check that out for yourself. And once again, you'll find the link at the very top of the description. I also want to give a special shout out to the top tier members already. Their names are going to be mentioned in the right below that first link for the Patreon. In parentheses, you'll see their names right there. And I want to give a special shout out to all my other Patreons. I love you guys, and I'm glad to have you on board. But other than that, going right into this video. So today what we're talking about is we're talking about the second archetype. So if you're watching this video, I hope you're watching it in order. If not, I would recommend you watch it in order. But just to give you a foundational understanding, and the reason why I'm telling you to watch it in order is because from the first archetype that I cover is giving you a foundational understanding of where I'm going to be getting these next archetypes from. So as you're watching these videos, I'm going to be talking about every single archetype going in order. So the question that you might have right now is like, what order are you going off of? Like, what do you mean like going in order? So all of these different archetypes correlate directly to the tarot deck, the Rider's Waite tarot deck, and the Arcana. So every single one of these are attributed to the tarot. And the tarot is directly attributed to the tree of life. Okay, so the tree of life is literally the backbone of the occult. So if you are trying to get into this practice of learning occult knowledge and you don't know about the tree of life, then you haven't even penetrated what the occult is truly about. Because really what the tree of life is it's a spiritual system that teaches you directly. It's like a spiritual schooling that teaches you directly every single law of the universe. And this is a study that you can literally do for the rest of your life, and you will still find new things. You'll find new avenues, and you'll find new pathways to go. So the reason why it's important that you go in order, I mean, obviously you're going to do what you're going to do, but I recommend that you go in order because since I'm connecting it back to the tree of life, I've worked through and have actual experience with the tree of life. I've actually initiated myself through them, and I've traveled these different pathways. So all of these archetypes, I've embodied all of them. I know what they feel like, and I've recognized them in my day-to-day life through actual experience. And now I'm theoretically breaking them down so that you can have a scientific understanding of what they are. But as you work through the tree, coming from the highest sphere, that's where the first pathway starts. So it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up to 21. And all of those represent a specific tarot card, which is a specific archetype. So, you know, I want to share this information with you in order, so that obviously, you know, when you watch, you know, the first video, and I'm gonna label it on my YouTube channel so that you know where to go. But on my first video is the first pathway. And what the tree of life represents is the very top sphere. That is where creation starts. So going all the way down to the very bottom is where physical manifestation comes, and is essentially like when you became a physical being. Okay, so it's important to, you know, go in order and give yourself some form of a structure to these understandings. Okay, so once again, what I explained from the first path, which was the Joker, I give you a foundational understanding of what's going on and how it's connected to the occult, how it's connected to the tree of life when it comes to archetypes, just like I'm sharing in this video. So this is the second path. So for those of you that are tuning in this video, I definitely recommend you go and you check out the first path. And I'm just going to guide everyone to the first path so that you can work your way down all the way to 21, and there will all be different archetypes. Okay, so yeah, so now that we're starting from that path and we're going to work our way down, we're on the first path now. So the first one I covered was path 0, and that's with the Joker. Now we're on the first path, and that is going to be the path of the Magician. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to read off my notes. And then I'm gonna tell you a little bit of personal experience and my views of this. Okay, so here we go. So path 1, the path of the trickster, the way of magic. The qualities: mental and physical flexibility, intelligence, trade, information, playfulness, words, magic spells, mantras, willpower, skill, agility, creating something out of nothing, cunning, lies, theft, mind over matter. The description: this path connects the nothingness of the crown with the materializing sphere of understanding. So when you correlate it back to the tree of life, it goes Kether, which is the crown, and then it with the crown with the materializing sphere of understanding, and then understanding would represent Binah. So it goes Kether, Chokmah, Binah. So this pathway is directly connected to the crown into Binah. Okay, that's how the energy is gonna flow into this. Okay, so it demands that you manifest your will as well as the will of others. Think of the magician who pulls a dove out of thin air. It is the path of mind over matter, the path of the magician and the master alchemist. Anyone who puts two people or projects together and then collects a finder's fee walks on this path. The writer, the negotiator, and the orator walk on this path as well. The number 1 symbolizes the energy of the initiator and of leadership. Logic rules here in the guise of a double-edged sword that can either destroy or be used to a greater clarity of understanding. On this path, you create magic if you employ the sword in the service of the light. Use your words wisely, they wield enormous power. So the affirmation of this path and of this archetype of the magician would be, I am ready for magic to dissolve my blocks. I am open to all channels of communication, and I am receptive to messages, from within and from without. I am the creator of my own life. The psalm of this archetype is going to be, with my lips I have told all the ordinances of thy mouth. Okay, the astrological aspect is going to be the planet Mercury, and obviously the tarot card is the magician, and this represents the ability in each of us to create what we need and drawing closer to the one. The magician is master of the four elements. He supports his words, being air, with action, being fire, and he does what he feels, being water, is right to achieve his goals, being earth. The magician's symbol is infinity. He is the writer, communicator, messenger, and trader. So the challenges that you'll experience once this archetype actually starts to influence you, because all this doesn't, this is giving you a theoretical understanding of what's going on. This is giving you a scientific, practical level of understanding, but this isn't going to mean anything until you've actually experienced it. So the reason why you're listening to this is one of two things. You either haven't experienced this yet and you're gaining knowledge right now from this video, understanding more about it to then experience it later down the road, or maybe you've experienced this already, you've been through this, and now this is giving you knowledge on what you have went through and what you've experienced. Okay, so the challenges that you're going to experience when this archetype starts to influence you is trickery, lies, and deception. Abusing magic and power for one's own selfish needs, walking in the shadow, susceptible to darkness. Okay, the Hebrew letter that is connected to this archetype is bet, means house or home in Hebrew. It suggests that we must find a home or a structure for all of our thoughts. Words contain great creative power, both good and bad. Declaring I can't make it will manifest itself just as easily as I will succeed. Use words with reverence. It is not a coincidence that the Torah, one of the channels of light into our world, begins with the letter bet. Aleph, path 0 is potential. This path, number 1, brings that potential to earth. So the first path being the Joker is potential, because the Joker sees the whole picture, the whole game. And this is why I want you to make sure you watch that video before you watch this one, because then you'll understand. But the Joker sees the whole game, and he realizes that none of it really, at the end of the day, really matters. So he gets to choose how he responds and how he acts to the world. He's a very free character, and he challenges people's beliefs so that he can break down their structures and then cause them to, if they're strong and if they're wise, to rebuild their structures in a much stronger way with a stronger foundation. So once again, let me read this again. Begins with the letter bet. Aleph, path 0 is the potential. So it's potential. This path number 1, the magician, brings that potential home to earth. So this brings it to more so of a physical manifestation. Not a full physical form yet, not completely, but it's now bringing it, that absolute everythingness, into its first beginnings of starting to approach form, you could say, into its first physical existence. Okay. All right, so that's that. Okay, so now let me give you a little bit of my experience actually working through this, actually embodying this archetype, actually feeling this archetype, seeing how this archetype has manifested in my day-to-day life and how it's influenced my state of mind, my psychology, my emotions, and all that stuff. So, okay, so the first thing that I want to say before I go into the experience fully is I need to give you an understanding of what happens leading up to this archetypal embodiment. If you're following, and trust me, there is a system and there is an initiatory path working that you can actually go through where you're going to embody all of these different archetypes. And once again, it's directly correlated to the tree of life, and you will be traveling down all these pathways. And as you're traveling down these pathways, you will literally feel these archetypes affect you, and as within, as without, you will manifest these types of understandings in your day-to-day life. So I worked my way up. From an initiatory standpoint, you go from the bottom and you work up. So I worked my way all the way up, experienced all the different archetypes. You know, I'm going to make the videos on them as well, share my experience, tell you the notes on them and everything. But as as you get up to the higher 3 spheres, which is Kether, Chokmah, and Binah, there is a crossing that you have to do with the hidden Sephra, or the hidden, I should say, not hidden Sephra, hidden sphere called Dath. Okay, Dath is known to be the abyss. Dath is where you have a spiritual, ego, full-on death. Okay, not necessarily physical death, but a spiritual and an egotistical death where you literally dissolve fully into nothingness. So I experienced this archetype of the magician in a very similar way as I was crossing the abyss. So basically what I'm saying, and I'm pretty sure that this is going to happen with most people that actually go through this path working. Okay, so it says the magician is the one who is ready to dissolve all his blocks. He's ready to let, or she is ready to let magic dissolve all of his or her blocks to become their better self. And that dissolving, in my perspective and from my experience, came a lot from this crossing the abyss, meaning I was already going through this death type of experience, where I was literally losing my ego, I was losing a sense of self, and what the purpose of that is. And you can watch my video on YouTube called Crossing the Abyss, and I should break it down, what it feels like and what it is. So what it, like, once again, the purpose of it is to become one, is to really see that we're all connected. When you have no ego, you have no defense. So then you're open to everything. You're extremely receptive. And you realize when you're extremely receptive like that, that there is this motherly energy, this motherly nature, this feminine, very powerful, extremely negative energy that actually guides you and gives you exactly what you need. And then same on the masculine aspect, it guides you and it gives you what you need, and it leads you in the right direction, even when you're defenseless. So it gives you a sense that you're always, at the end of the day, you're always taken care of. The only person that can truly destroy you and truly put an end to you is your own self. So I just want to make that clear. But during the experience of me crossing this path of the magician, of path 1, and experiencing what that was like, it manifested in one of the people that I worked with. So I was working at Home Depot part-time, and it manifested itself in one of my coworkers. And the magician archetype, from the way that I experienced it and the way that I saw it, it was a man who was a very knowing person. He was a very wise, extremely wise person. I worked with this guy, and I spent most of my time working with him. But he was very wise, and he had this extreme level of knowing. Like, there would be tons of customers, especially when you're working at Home Depot during this pandemic. There's tons of chaos, and there's tons of customers asking all these crazy questions, and it's almost like he was able to just sit there and just know what the people were asking for, and understand and just be with them. And because of that, I took on that aspect too. I took on that archetype of that magician, and I started to see how he was acting, and I was able to embody that as well, and play the same archetype, play the same role. So I became very knowing, very wise. Not like saying, oh, this, there was, once again, there was not a lot of ego in this path for me. There was not a lot of like, oh, I think you're wrong. I think that, like what you're looking for. It was like, no matter what, if someone came up to me with a question that they didn't understand, or they were looking for something, and even if I didn't know, like if I had no idea, I would still sit with them, and I would try to go deeper into it and figure out how can I find what they're looking for. And what happens most of the time is there was tons of people that that would come up to me during my job, and they would ask me all these questions, and a lot of the times I wouldn't even know the answer, but I would be with them, and I would listen to them, and I would try to understand them on a deep level. And what that would result in them, it was like the energy I carried was so powerful that they would actually answer their own questions. And I would just be around them. They would say, hey, excuse me, sir, can you help me with this? And I would have no idea how to actually help them, but I'm not tapping into my full you could say intellect. I wasn't tapping into my intellect. It was more so of a knowingness that was within me. So I would just be around them, and I knew that if I stood with them, if I listened to them, if I heard them, and I tried to help them as best as I could, that it would provide them an extreme push of energy that they needed to find the answer to the problem. And literally happened all the time. Like, people would ask me questions I had no idea the answer to. I would just stand with them and intently try to help them as best as I could, and they would always come up with their own answers. They'd be like, oh cool, I found it, thank you. And I'd be like, yep, absolutely. So the magician is a guide. Okay, the magician is a role in an archetype of a guide. Okay, the guy, the one who knows, the one is very, you could say, very mystical, very like, is logical, absolutely, because the magician is naturally at its, you could say, its base state, a very mystical kind of person. So the magician, in order to balance out that level of mystic, that level of being mystical and being extremely spiritually receptive and open, in order to balance that out, you have to use the logic. So you have to use your mind to balance out that receptivity and that mysticism that you naturally carry around yourself. So to give you an example of what that's like, it's like, you know, you choose, you know, you also choose who you want to help to a certain extent. And what I mean is, like, you put your mind on what is in your best interest and what is in other people's best interest. So obviously, when you're extremely receptive and you're extremely mystical, there's a lot of people that could potentially take advantage of you because you're like that. Because not everyone understands that, and it's, you know, once again, it's kind of just a level of, you know, it's a level of almost like there's a certain level of, like, it feels like defenseless to the base core of what the magician is. But remember, it balances itself out with the logic. So you're still aware that you want to deeply connect with people, and you want to deeply see the truths behind what it is that they're saying, because that's what the magician is always searching for. The magician is always searching for the deeper meanings of life, whether the other person they're conversating with or whether the experience that they're in recognizes it or not. That's literally what the magician is always striving for. So the magician will naturally recognize that they're opening themselves up on a different degree than what most people are even comfortable with. But there's also, you know, there's also some risk to opening yourself up that much, meaning that there are some people that will come in and try to influence you potentially in a way that is not in your best interest. So you have to use your logic to make sure that you're aware when that happens. So let's say someone starts to, like, tell you this, you know, this false idea or this false opinion that they have, and they're trying to, like, push it on you. The magician is extremely intuitive, so he recognizes that, and then he stands his ground as well and says, no, like, you know, I don't agree with that. Like, I understand this is where you're coming from. I understand this is what you believe to be real, but I also understand that this is not in the best interest for my life, and to be quite honest, this is not in the best interest for your life. But if that's what you want to believe, then feel free to believe it, because I don't need to go out of my way to change your beliefs. That's your job, okay? So that's very, like, magician-like. Yeah, so the magician is definitely going to be a guide. Okay, he's going to be someone, or she's going to be someone that you most likely will see in your day-to-day life around you, that is being this person that is, you could say you look up to them. Like, you see them, and you want to emanate a certain aspect of what they're doing, and that is the energy of the magician archetype. So when you start to work on that pathway, you're most likely going to have a similar experience in that context. And what else do I want to say about the magician? Okay, so I want to talk about the challenges of the magician. So this would be known as, like, the shadow magician, okay, which is pretty much the vices of what the magician is. So we have the virtues and we have the vices. What I kind of just explained to you was more so of the virtues. You know, it's like you're just this all-knowing person that is always striving to look deeper into life, and you're bringing this level of unity to people, into situations, and, you know, literally, like people are going to tell you certain things, and you have a choice if you want to use their own perspective against them, or if you want to connect them into something bigger. Okay, this is deep what I'm sharing with you, but the magician is very powerful, meaning he sees the deeper meanings in a lot of life, and he can make that decision. Like, is this like the healthy way to be working on the magician through this archetype is to be constantly trying your best to plug people back into that source understanding, meaning we are all one and we are trying to help evolve one another. And then once again, you balance that with logic. Sometimes you're gonna have people that don't have the best interest and they say dumb shit, and then you know when to put a block on that, and then you know how to go your own way. But the vices of what the magician would be, which would come into the shadow magician, is someone who's extremely, they're only looking out for their own benefit. They're only looking out for their own self-good. And what tends to happen is they will recognize, yes, you know, they have this ability where they could literally completely, you know, help someone, meaning like, you know, the shadow magician, they still are the magician. They still have this very intuitive, mystic type of nature, but they have, the shadow magician would be having no concern for the good, the evolving or the improvement of other people, only himself. So for example, let's say there's other people around me, and you know, let's say we have mediocre conversation, right? Like mediocre, like the other person is coming from a certain vibrational level, and I'm being the magician archetype, and I'm just like, yeah, like I get what you're saying, but it's, you know, there's not, I'm aware of the fact that there's not too much, you know, too much deep meaning behind it. But, you know, as the true magician, you still are going to listen, and you're still going to try and find those deeper meanings, because if you go deep enough, you will find them. But the shadow magician, what that would manifest as is, oh, how dare you waste my time? You know what I mean? Like why are you sharing this low vibration shit with me? Get yourself together. And it's just kind of like a more so an aspect where you're just kind of like pushing people to the side all the time. And the goal of the magician, when you're walking down this pathway, is to connect deeper and then lead people to a higher understanding, because the magician is supposed to connect people. Remember, the magician is supposed to guide people from a mystical, magical perspective. But the shadow magician is not guiding people. The shadow magician is using their ability from their words, because remember, as the magician, your words are extremely powerful. So if someone starts telling me what their beliefs are, and I say, no, you're stupid for believing that, how dare you, like you're gonna screw your life up, that's not helping that person understand why they believe what they believe, and then plugging them into maybe a new idea. The virtue of the real magician would say, oh, I see what you believe, I understand that, because I used to understand that too, or I used to see things in that same way too, but I realized that belief led me to this, and you know, now what I believe is this. And you throw it out there, and you don't need to force them to believe what you believe, but you throw it out there, and that gives them an opportunity to grab onto that new belief, and that essentially plugs them into source, a higher understanding. It actually raises their vibration a little bit and progresses them in their own self-development. The shadow magician, once again, is just going to be like, oh, you're a fucking idiot. Like, you really believe that, you stupid shit? Like, you're wasting my time. Like, do you know how important I am? Do you know my words mean things? Do you know if I, like you're gonna be nothing. And those words can affect that person. You know, egotistically, it's obviously gonna bring that person's ego out. I mean, they're gonna be like, no, I'm not. They're like, how dare you say that to me? And what do you mean I'm nothing? And what do you mean this is dumb? But then when, like, later when you split directions, your words as the magician are going to ring in that person's mind. They're going to ring over and over and over and over. And, you know, that's not the most effective way to handle things. And yes, there is going to be a time and place. Sometimes you have to experience this understanding of the shadow magician in order to work it out of your system. And we have to understand this. Like, when we talk about alchemy, you know, you've got to literally, to an extent, you've got to embody the vices and the virtues. You've got to experience what it's like to be the magician, the true core magician, the guide magician, and you have to kind of experience what it's like to be the shadow magician. I've been that before. I know what that's like. That's why I can really speak on it. That's another thing that's very misunderstood in our society today. It's like, you know, in order to really share knowledge on certain subjects, you have to actually have experience with it. You know, we have tons of people that would tell you, oh no, you don't want to emulate or emanate those vices of what this archetype is. But the truth is like, you know, you're not going to have substance when you teach about why the vices aren't what you want to turn into, because you haven't experienced yourself. So just because you experience and you express these vices, these you know, you could say the challenging aspects of this archetype, that doesn't mean that you're forever going to be that. Okay, so we're looking at it, we can look at it almost from a positive and a negative standpoint. You can sometimes embody this aspect of the shadow magician to experience what it's like, to experience what it feels like. And if it comes naturally for you and it comes out like a very like, I guess, just natural, you know, if it comes out and it feels like it's the right thing to do, then I would truly trust your intuition on that. I truly would. But then what happens is you work through it. You let it out of your system, okay? It burns through your system, and now you have an understanding of what that is, that aspect of the magician archetype. And then once you have that understanding, then you can choose what is going to be best for your future. So as I said, I've experienced what this negative aspect of the shadow magician feels like. So I have an understanding, an idea, a perspective of who it is that I want to be in my future and who it is that I am right now. And it's not that person. It's not the person that's trying to harm innocent people that are ignorant. Okay, I have no issues putting an end to someone that's trying to, you know, come against me and in a very harsh way. I have no issues doing that, but I don't want to, if someone's innocent and someone is truly just ignorant, I don't want to just, my go-to isn't to harm them. My go-to isn't to like throw them off and to shame them. My goal is to help them get to where they need to go. But I wouldn't have this deep understanding if I didn't embody the shadow aspect of the magician. So, you know, it is what it is. And if I do embody that version of that, you could say that archetype, then I get a strong intuition that tells me this is not what you want to become. Like very strong, to the point where it's like, I feel weaker if I try to do that. And it's like I trained my subconscious, I've trained my spirit to not emulate that. But the only way that I was able to fully grasp that and understand it was from actually expressing it and becoming it. Okay, so it's a very, this is in depth and this is a deep thing, but it's true. So yeah, so that would be the vices of the magician, is that dark magician, okay, that shadow magician who is using his words to hurt people, to literally cut them off and make them feel like they are on the wrong path. But remember, it's not like a good versus evil kind of thing. There are times where you will be the shadow magician just to understand it and experience it, and it actually can help certain people, because some people need that fucking cut down. Some people on a deep level need their egos to be crashed, and it causes them to grow a little bit higher. But the truth is once you've understood both of these versions of the magician, you get a choice at the end of it. And what you want to gravitate towards is the virtues of that magician, because that's going to make you a more successful person. Okay, the shadow magician wouldn't be on this video right now explaining this knowledge and this wisdom with you. The shadow magician would be like, oh, fuck them. I'm going to be successful at whatever I do. I don't need to share this shit. You know, who gives a fuck? It's not going to help anybody. But the virtues of the magician is, I'm trying to help you understand. I want you to listen and be receptive to what I'm saying, so that it can slowly dissolve the blocks that you have in your life, whether you're aware of it or not. It can be a subconscious and an unconscious thing. It's a very powerful thing that I'm doing on my channel, especially breaking down these occult sciences, and especially with this topic, talking about the different archetypes and then tying all this back into the tree of life, the Kabbalah. So yeah, so that was my experience. You know, that was my experience with this archetype. And, you know, obviously I read off my notes, so I know that offered you some value. So that's gonna wrap it up, guys. I definitely am glad with what I shared on here. So that's where it's going to end. Make sure you hit the like button. Go down here, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Then come down here, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell because I'm posting videos as often as I can. And once again, to gain access to all of these exclusive videos, definitely go and check out the Patreon. Once again, where you're going to find the Patreon is the first link in the description. Okay, right there. Then go to the second link below. There you'll find my Streamlabs merch page, so you can literally place an order for a Hecate sigil shirt. And when you place your order, they will literally ship it right to your door, just like Amazon Prime. Then you go to the third link below. That's going to take you to the Facebook community. When you click that link, you're going to see a pinned post that says private group. Click that, request to join the private group, and I will add you in. And on there, I post a little bit of extra content in the form of, like, you know, written content, just kind of like what I'm feeling in the form of like certain sayings or certain quotes or certain ideas and perspectives, and then sometimes picture quotes, things in that nature. So definitely check that out. Yeah, I'm gonna start being a little more active on that now that I have more people that are in that group. But yeah, other than that, I'm gonna wrap it up here, and I will see you guys on the next video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day or night wherever you are, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.